Hello and welcome back to Charging Status, the EV Focus podcast brought to you from the interface. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Jim Starling. Hi Jim.
Hi Alex, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Feels like quite a while since we recorded last time. It was in that sort of dimly lit hotel room. But
didn't we do two fairly quickly? And then it has been a while, I think. I don't know, my brain scrambles. I've just been so unbelievably busy for what seems like quite a long time. So I've got no concept of time or space anymore.
It's all been good fun.
Yeah. What have you been up to?
That's a good question. I had the Hyundai Ioniq 6, the big sort of lovely saloon car that you and Tom took to Germany last year. I think it was last year.
What did you think of it?
Oh my god.
How nice is it?
I've fallen in love with it. It's dangerous, but so good. I took it to, as I mentioned in the last episode, took it up to Glasgow and then did a big, basically a massive road trip in it. Just so easy, so effortless, so comfortable. Just 10 out of 10.
That car is just built for touring. It's just eats up a road trip.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely thing to drive though, isn't it?
It's brilliant. And I think some people look at Hyundai and think, oh, it's going to be a bit. They might just have a little bit of preconceived. What do they call it? Sort of preconceived. About what you're going to expect. But everything in that car is so good quality.
Yeah.
All the materials are really good. It's outstanding. The only thing is in the back, the headroom's not quite as good as other vehicles. So if you're lucky enough. Sorry, if you're unlucky enough to be taller than me, there you go. Nice positive spin on it. You are going to struggle a little bit for headroom, but other than that, it's fine. So most
8 or 9 year olds are taller than you, though, so it's a good thing to mention. The boot space as well is the. I mean, I think it's adequate, but
it's fine.
It could be bigger.
Yeah, I mean, we took some cardboard boxes to the tip and stuff, and it was a bit of a squeeze because I don't know if you noticed, but in the back where you fold the seats down, it's like half the size of the actual boot opening. It's really weird.
Yeah.
So I just thought.
Did you have proper mirrors or cameras?
Cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first few days I was like, oh, I don't really like these, but actually they were fine. I wouldn't spec those if I was buying one because they're a grand. But
do you know the annoying thing if you don't spec them?
Go on then.
The dashboard is exactly the same, and they've just got like blank panels in where the screens are.
Oh, no way.
And it looks really poo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I probably would spec them just for that reason, because otherwise it just looks odd and unfinished.
That's really weird.
Yeah, but luckily they work brilliantly well, and you get used to them, don't you, quite quickly?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely fine. And then on the drive, I haven't had this for a while, but both cars went back and arrived on the same day. So I had the Skoda Enyaq arrive on Friday. It was supposed to be the VRS, but I think someone had broken the windscreen or something on that one. So it's a sport line. But this isn't the 2025 model that's just been refreshed. It's the last gen.
Mm-hmm.
It's surprisingly good. I haven't driven it that far yet. I'm doing some filming tomorrow, but no, it's all right. It's fine.
Great.
So yeah, the software is quite good actually. I'm quite surprised.
Yeah.
For a new VW Group product, the software is actually it is so smooth. Like pinch to zoom, it's like almost as good as a Tesla.
Great.
And yeah, exactly. It's surprising. So it's quite good.
Yeah, I think that latest version of it has improved massively. I mean, when I went and did the drive on the, I think it was on the Passat or the Golf, it just felt like it'd come on a long way in VW Group.
Yeah, definitely. And then a few weeks ago, I recorded another episode of the EV Musings podcast with Gary Comerford. And we basically ran through all the new EVs that are coming out this year or on sale already in each segment, which was quite strange to do. Like, it's quite weird to think that certain vehicles are in a B segment or C segment. You think they'll be bigger than they actually are, but we ran through those different details. And yeah, that episode should be out at some point in the next few weeks, I'd imagine. So
cool.
Yeah. And then
you've been
go on.
Getting a bit lively on two wheels, I understand.
Yeah. So we're recording this on Tuesday. On Sunday, which was probably the worst day to do it because it was raining, windy, just grim and cold. But for ages, so my brother, he basically got his a goal on his head to complete his driving license. He wants to drive every single vehicle on the list, and he said, "I'm going to do my CBT. Do you want to do it with me?" So we did it together. And funny enough, because the weather was that bad, someone actually pulled out the morning of, so it was just the two of us doing it.
Right.
A lot harder than I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
So we both started on 125cc Honda bikes, I guess, with gears, and we quickly found that quite difficult because it is a lot harder than it looks. For example, when you want to turn around a corner, you've got to keep the throttle at a certain position, have the clutch in at a certain bite point, and then also brake, because you have to brake around corners, but holding the throttle in, which is really backward. I struggled with that, so we ended up doing it on 50cc sort of
twist and go
Uber Eats mopeds.
Yeah.
But yeah, even with so we did it in Gloucester, which is near there's an airfield near there, and we went over quite an exposed road, and the amount of wind sort of movement you can feel is a bit sketchy. But we both got there in the end. We both didn't kill anyone or die, so that's quite good. So
you can do some electric moped reviews now.
That was the main idea, basically. I wanted to check out what's out there because I don't know if you remember when you went to Farnborough Fully Charged show last year, but the year before they had electric motorbikes you could ride, but you had to have your CBT. They wouldn't let you use them unless. So that was something I want to try out when that happens this year. So
I'll tell you what, that's a little niche on YouTube that's probably underserved as well.
Yeah. It was good fun. It definitely gives you a new perspective on how big the road feels when you're basically on it.
And I guess you feel pretty vulnerable as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And as a car driver, I'm going to be a bit more careful now. Just be a bit more aware of what's going on, because there was some drivers on the road during our little sort of driving section that weren't being so careful. But
I'm sure.
But it was interesting. I'd recommend anyone go and do it because it gives you a new perspective on what it's like. But it was all day, so it was like 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Well done, mate.
Yeah, it was quite good fun. So might end up doing something else with that at some point. So. And then a few weeks ago, I went down to London. And Xpeng had their UK debut launch event, basically. And I ran into a few famous faces, which was quite nice.
Go on, name names.
There was Nicola Hume. So
Nicola Hume's my birthday twin. Yeah,
that's the only thing there's any similarity between the two of you.
I think so. Yeah.
Steve Fowler was there.
Yeah.
Dan Caesar from Fully Charged was there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ran into Louise Woodhams, who I interviewed on the last episode of the Creator Spotlight, which I haven't done an episode for a while now. And that was about it, I think. It was quite a nice little event. It was central London. I made a massive mistake with my sat nav on my phone. I set the car park to the wrong place somehow, and I was driving around in circles for an hour, so I was actually slightly late. But anyway, that's another story. But it was good. Those cars are really, really good quality inside. They showed off the G6, which is on sale now, which we'll talk about in a bit. But there's also I think it's called the G9, or the X9. It's like a big MPV style vehicle. They compared it to the eVito passenger vehicle, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like a Denza in terms of quality.
Really? That
Yeah,
I was massively impressed by the Denzas. Like they're just basically a business class suite on wheels.
Yeah, definitely. Really impressive. They had some other vehicles which I can't remember the name of. A saloon vehicle. There was also an SUV. Some of the vehicles will launch later this year, they said, but the G6 is the only one they've got on sale right now. So
Cool.
Big thumbs up. They should do well, and they've priced it quite well as well. So,
and you went to the Aura event, didn't you?
I did. So International Motors, who import Xpeng and GWM, actually, they gave us a little talk about why the company has decided to rebrand itself in the UK, and also we got a look at the new Aura 03 GT, which is very cool. I made a little video on my channel for that. They also had, which isn't EV related, they had the Haval Julion Pro in the office foyer, and that was interesting. Seems better quality than I thought it would be, especially given the price, which is about 23 grand. But that's a hybrid SUV, very similar to the MG, the smaller SUV of the MGs. I can't remember the name of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should do well. But yeah, I thought the Aura 03 GT was impressive. They've addressed a lot of the issues that I noticed with the Pro Plus with this one. So,
cool.
So yeah,
very good.
Yeah, and then what have you been up to in the last few weeks?
We had the MG Cyberster, which was great. I loved it. It's sort of stupid, but I loved it, and I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
That's good.
Having seen, I, as you probably know, before I do a review, I try not to watch anything else.
Yeah.
But when that originally came out, I watched a couple of first drive kind of things. I think there might have been one on Fully Charged and something else, and everyone was a bit meh. And I just didn't get that at all. I thought it was great, and people said it felt slow and felt like really heavy, and I just didn't. It's, it's not an MX-5, but it was absolutely brilliant, and the quality, the fit and finish was superb. The interior in that thing felt like it was from something several categories ahead of it, and it's not what you would necessarily expect from MG. And I think really, so I mean, they only expect to sell 300 of them in the UK, and I think really they've done it just to say, look, we can do this, and we haven't forgotten who we are. And I think they're going to be, I don't know if you've seen like the MG7 and the MG9 and stuff that are available in other markets, but they are much more luxurious cars that are trying to compete with the Germans, sort of big saloon cars and that kind of stuff, and sort of sports coupe kind of things. And I think it's just putting a foot forward to say, we're not just generic, cheap, transport. We can do exciting still. And, the doors are a complete gimmick, obviously, the sort of suicide doors or whatever you want to call them. But the amount of times I stopped in that thing and parked up, 3 people actually stopped me on my drive and said, what is it? And one of them said, is that an MG? And I said, yeah. And he said, what? And I think that's the whole point of it for MG. Yep. I think it's a brilliant sort of marketing thing. And it's a great looking car. It really is a good looking car. And a lovely thing to drive and to live with, really. Does have a few faults. I mean, you'd be fine in it, but if you were 6 foot, you'd have big problems in one of those.
Right.
So it's not perfect by any means, but for a car that's there to make a statement and just sell it in relatively low numbers, I think they've done a great job with it.
The Chinese haven't sold cars in the UK for that long, really. And the only way they were going to enter the market is to be cheap, and they've now got the confidence to go high end. If you look at what BYD are doing with their luxury brands, it makes sense, and that's where the money is, really. So if they can do it well, I think they should do it, and they've got every right to compete, really.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Yeah. And I've been to LA again. So I went in November for the LA Auto Show, which I also went to the year before. And basically I thought, I've got to bring my wife and kids, because the kids are going to absolutely love some of the stuff. My son's obsessed with the Titanic. And about as close as you could get to going on the Titanic is to go on the Queen Mary, the original Queen Mary, which is a hotel now at Long Beach. It's been moored up there since 1969, I think.
Oh, wow.
And he got to go on that, and he touched one of the funnels, which blew his tiny mind. And he's obsessed with Super Mario. So we went to Universal Studios. They've got like Super Nintendo World. We went to Disneyland, which was absolutely brilliant. Some of the new rides and things are just mind blowing. Really, you can't quite get your head around what they're doing. You sort of take everything you thought a theme park ride was and throw it out the window because the game has changed. So it was really, really good. And we did a few of the sites and stuff because I've been there so many times. I've probably been to LA about 8 times, so I know lots of the off the beaten path kind of stuff, and know some of the areas where you just go and chill out and have a coffee and wander through a town. And it's such a vast place, and obviously it's got some really awful areas and some really lovely areas. But some of the nicest areas are the ones that most tourists would never go to. The best thing about that holiday is we were there for 9 days and I didn't hear an English accent the entire time. And that's what I want. When I go to a different country, I don't want my own to be there. So that was great. A little bit jet lag still, I have to say.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, when you fly in the wrong end of the plane, it's not the easiest to sleep. Well, one other thing I'll mention about LA, well, two actually, is the Waymo taxis are still out in force. The Jaguar I-Paces with cameras stuck all over them. And loads of Cybertrucks. I saw absolutely... I must have seen 100 Cybertrucks on the road, 3 of which were Cyber Beasts.
Huh. Well,
which are about as subtle as Elon with a chainsaw. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk the fact they're not selling, but if you've seen loads, like, yeah.
I don't know. I think it gets clicks, doesn't it? It gets views. I mean, I did a video the other day with the referral codes on, and my code got 8 clicks in about 4 hours.
Wow.
And that means 8 people ordered one off the back of my video that got, I don't know, 5,000 views or something.
Yeah, it's mental, isn't it?
So I think they're still selling.
Is that code, can anyone in the world use that code?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not UK specific, it's...
No.
Oh, right, okay.
But you can only use it after 10 times it runs out or something. Right. But every time they do a new campaign, it opens up again. So like my YouTube channel members, I let them share their codes as well. So I put all of them into the videos.
Yep.
So hopefully lots of people are amassing referral credit, which is nice.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Okay, we've got a bit of news to get through. And we're going to kick things off with the Kia PV5. Now, there was some rumours about this being launched last year. Some pictures got leaked and rendered and stuff. But Kia have now revealed the picture of the Kia PV5 Cargo and the PV5 Passenger, it's called. And we're recording on the 25th of February, but on the 27th of February, Kia's going to have the EV Day, so their own sort of media event, basically. And this looks...
When's this?
This is the 27th of Feb.
Is it?
Yeah.
Thanks, Kia.
Yeah, apparently they're going to launch the... Well, they've already revealed the pictures of the EV4, but they're going to announce more details about these new vehicles. And the PV5 is going to have its UK debut at the CV show at the NEC in April, which I'll definitely be going to. I've quite enjoyed the last 2 times I've gone to that. So I'll definitely be going to that. I'm making some videos and stuff. And according to various outlets, it's going to have the same platform as the EV3. So 400 volt, not 800 volt, which makes sense for a van, really. So yeah, I'm really excited by this. I've just got quite an interest in EV vans. There's not much innovation in that space, and this looks to hopefully shake up the market. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, I saw the concept at Paris, and I just thought it looked absolutely awesome. And they had a slightly different version of it in LA as well. But not last week, at the show in November. And yeah, it just looks brilliant. And it looks like a platform, quite a clever platform that they can really make bespoke versions. Because obviously with a van, they can sell it to the man on the street. But what they really want to do is sell 100,000 of them to Amazon, or 100,000 of them to another gas supplier, or whoever it is. And to do that, they need to be really clever with what they can do inside it and how easily they can do it. So making a platform that appears to be quite modular and quite customizable seems to make a lot of sense. And I think, again, like lots of the legacy commercial vehicle manufacturers have dragged their feet and been really slow. And I think, like a little bit of a conspiracy theory, I think possibly they've done it to keep all the servicing money rolling in for the diesel and petrol fleets, especially the diesel fleets, which obviously is most of it, and diesels need servicing more often.
Yep.
I think they're kind of looking at it as, oh dear, we make X amount per year on servicing fleets of diesel vans.
Yep.
If we suddenly take that away and they all go electric, how are we going to replace that money? And I think that's why you've still got really old tech in a lot of the electric vans.
Yeah, I thought about this while I was writing the article. I thought most of the EV van market is rubbish, really.
Yeah.
Well, I drove the E-Transit Custom December time. As I said on the episode, just did a dealer test drive and stuff because I was desperate to find out what it was like, and it's compromised in its range. And the only really good van that's on the market right now is the ID Buzz. And what's hilarious is because Volkswagen they've rebranded the Transit as the Transporter. If you go on their website to compare the ID Buzz to the E-Transporter, on every single metric apart from payload, that Transporter is way worse than the ID Buzz, which is really bizarre.
It is bizarre, isn't it?
Worse range, worse charging speed, worse efficiency, just slightly more payload, and it's like, why are you selling this?
Yeah.
But yeah. I think the van market needs shaking up, and I think Kia are very, very well poised to do this because they've got a really good reputation in the EV space.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm gutted I didn't get an invite for that because I would have gone.
I haven't got an invite. It's an online event apparently.
It's online.
I think so. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know much detail about it. I haven't got an invite. So
I don't. To be honest, they've never invited me to an event. So
right. No, I just heard about it.
Probably wouldn't have done
this
anyway.
event was happening. Where they're announcing all the specs of their upcoming cars. So that'd be quite cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, should be quite good.
Nice.
As we mentioned earlier, the Xpeng G6 is now on sale in the UK. Prices are strategically just slightly below £40,000 for the. Is it the luxury car tax? Is that what it's called?
It's actually called something stupid, but it's called the. Oh God. Everyone's going to call it the luxury car tax, but it's actually called something. It's like road tax. Everyone calls it road tax, but it's vehicle excise duty.
Okay. So yeah, it seems like they've poised it below that threshold, basically, to avoid whatever you get. So essentially a Model Y rival, I guess. And as I mentioned earlier, the quality is really, really good on this one. And one thing they were quite keen to point out is the charging speed for the price. So they had a little table on the screen of a price per vehicle and the charging speed. And on the longer range model, this can charge at 280 kilowatt, which is quite impressive, really. And yeah, lots of stuff comes as standards, no option extras. Everything just gets bunged at a standard, which is very common for Chinese cars. I'm not entirely sure why, but I think it probably makes production a bit simpler for them.
It's $5,000 cheaper than the Tesla Model Y as well, so that will attract a few people, I'm sure.
Yeah. And you can pre-order one now from the Xpeng UK website. And one thing with the dealers, they've got their first one opening next month. Not sure where that is yet, but they're going to have 20 open in the UK before 2026. So I guess that means this year. So yeah,
cool.
Yeah, should be quite impressive.
Yeah, looking forward to that and trying to get behind the wheel at one.
Yeah,
is that International Motors as well? It is, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, it's not part of GWM. It's Xpeng's its own company, and one of the things they mentioned during the event was that Xpeng is a tech company first that just happens to make cars.
Like Tesla.
Yeah, and they've actually made their own silicon. They made their own processors for this car, just like Apple does with the MacBooks and stuff. So they've made their own chips for it. They're doing, yeah, that was it as well. Sorry, it's all coming back to me now. They've before they launched the UK, they were very keen to develop the self-driving features to understand the UK roads because they are a bit unique. So there's B roads, back roads that don't have any markings on them, which cars get a bit upset about, and this apparently can handle all of that.
Great.
They're keen to train it first. So
sounds good.
Yeah. Well, talking of vans, this isn't relevant to the UK audience, but we have a few US listeners. Rivian they had a bunch of money invested in them by Amazon a while back for an exclusive deal to produce the EV van that they have over there for Amazon deliveries. That threshold has now expired. I think it was 3 years, and Rivian can now sell this van to the mass market essentially. The specs seem a bit strange, but I guess the weight of it and the length of it have an impact on this. So there's 2 versions available. One is 6.3 meters long, and one is 7 meters long. Both of them have a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack, but up to 160 miles of range, which seems quite low. But I guess because it is massive,
yeah,
makes sense.
When you think it's meant for
Yes.
last mile delivery, really, isn't it? Although, like in the US, depending on where you are, everywhere's 30 miles away. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess it's been built for literally just that.
Yeah. And quite surprisingly, it's got 100 kilowatt DC charging. So if the delivery driver does need to go a little bit further, they can plug in somewhere and charge quite quickly. And then you've got 11 kilowatt AC as well. Prices are $80,000 in the US, which is around £63,000. Yeah, it'll probably never come to the UK because it is massive. But yeah, it's quite cool that they're allowing Rivian to sell, or Rivian are starting to sell this van to every other person that needs it. So
I saw loads of Rivians on the road in LA as well. Like,
oh yeah,
they are absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, I've heard good things about them. Whenever I'm on Twitter and stuff, there's always people talking about the R1S and the R1T, and they do seem really good quality, and the software seems quite impressive as well.
Yeah, all quite clever design as well. That area where you've got that sort of utility space on the truck, and you can literally use it for a myriad of different things, and you can buy different modules to stick in there, like a barbecue and kitchen and like all manner of different things. But it seems like a really nice, well-rounded product. That's been thought about. But evidently they're not doing very well either. But there's lots of them on the road.
And I don't know if we mentioned on the podcast before, but Rivian will be launching the UK at some stage. I can't remember if we have mentioned it, but they've got the R2 and the R3. The R3 is like a jacked up little SUV kind of thing, and that makes more sense for our roads because that R1T is massive. So that should be quite cool whenever they do that.
Yeah.
I think you covered it on one of your videos recently as well. But Genesis has decided to remove all combustion models from the UK market. And you can't order any new ones currently, and any ones they have left, that's the last of them basically. So that includes the G70 Saloon, the GV70 petrol, GV80, and the G80 as well. And for now, they're going to be an EV only company until they can launch some hybrid versions. So yeah, does that make sense to you?
It makes complete sense to me. I actually really like the petrol engine. It's a 4-cylinder that feels like a 6, like massively smooth. It even sounds like a 6-cylinder. But the numbers are nothing special to look at when you compare it to most of its rivals. And the diesel is just wrong. It's just an agricultural diesel in a car that's anything but, and it just doesn't fit. It works completely well, but it takes away from the car. It's a luxury, super refined car, and you've got this diesel that sounds like it's from a Peugeot taxi or something. So it's just wrong. And I don't think too many people would have bought one of the petrol or diesel versions simply because they're company cars at the end of the day. like someone driving around in a G80, that's a company car. There aren't too many people going out to buy a G80 to drive around as their normal car. That's your company director that's doing 50,000 miles a year. And I don't think they'd have bought that over a 7 Series or a 5 Series or an A8 or an A6, simply because it's going to absolutely hammer them on company car tax and doesn't quite match up to the rivals in terms of performance or MPG or anything else, where the EVs are brilliant.
Yep.
Absolutely fantastic. And they sort of add to the refined nature of the car rather than taking away from it.
Yeah, I agree.
And when you compare those to some of the rivals, actually they look really good. But plug-in hybrids will be important for them because of that company car market. And they need to make sure when they come out with a plug-in drivetrain, they've got probably 75 miles of all-electric range. Again, to appeal to those company car drivers. Otherwise, I think don't bother. So again, I don't think too many Joe Publics are going to go and buy one.
Yeah, and it won't be difficult for them to do because they've got the whole Hyundai group to lean on. So the Santa Fe is available in a plug-in hybrid option, and they could easily modify that for a GV80. And the entire lineup of cars is due to be refreshed. Basically, I think we've talked about this on the podcast before. GV70 is going to have a new version. So is the GV80. Not 100% sure, but the G80 are definitely going to have a brand new version. And the G70 is actually going to be discontinued, from what I understand. I'm going to have an EV. What do they call it? An EV super saloon, I think. Yeah. According to Electrek. So yeah, that should be very interesting. And I do agree with you. They're petrol cars. They sound really good. They perform really well, but their MPG is a bit disappointing. It's not. I don't know. It doesn't quite.
And the CO2 figure, which is going to be.
Yeah.
Like for some of these cars now, they'll live or die by their CO2 figure simply because of benefit in kind.
Yeah.
And if ever there's a brand that's made for a company car driver, it's Genesis.
Yeah. Well, in unrelated news, I haven't written it down, but that CO2 comment. For example, the Mazda 2, that's had two versions available for a long time: the Yaris hybrid version, and then also the Mazda homegrown version. Yeah. They've just dropped the Mazda 2 from sale, probably based on the CO2 figures, because the Mazda 2 standard one puts out 109, whereas the Yaris rebadged version is 87. And having that available brings their figures down. It means they can sell more MX-5s. So, yeah.
Yeah, and they're struggling otherwise because they've got, that MX-30, which is incredibly limited in terms of its range, but it's a lovely little thing. I took one of those out on a drive day, filmed a whole review, the first time I've ever paid a cameraman for the day, and it was completely shit, and I couldn't use any of it. But it was a lovely little car, but the range is not great.
Yeah.
Mazda desperately need to get their EVs sold, and if not, drastically reduce that CO2 figure for sure.
Yep. We mentioned Aura earlier because I drove the Aura 03 GT, but the big news is the price tag. So I've got my long-term review of that car coming up soon, but the sum up for the whole video was based on how expensive that car is, and as I finished the video, the price has actually come down, so that makes things a bit awkward. But the Aura 03 used to start at 31,995. It now is 24,995, which is really, really good.
Yeah.
And quite hilariously, that GT model is actually £2,000 cheaper than the Pro Plus model was. So it's 32,995. So you get quite a good car really with a heat pump for that price. So yeah,
this is the thing. I mean, they're up against the Renault 5 now, and you can't be going in 20 grand more than a Renault 5, can you?
No chance. No.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. So one of the things that was really wrong with that car was the lane assist features and all those bits and pieces. And they told us when we took the cars out that leave everything turned on, go and try it and see how it is. And I did, and it's fine. So I was in a really good position because I've driven that Aura
Yep.
so much. I was so used to everything on it, and I got in it. I was like, yeah, this is actually really good now.
Yeah.
And they fixed the wheel spin issue as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Right, because that was the thing I was most worried about.
yeah.
Because I thought, God, like putting even more power into this is going to be
Well,
upsetting.
the GT model doesn't have any more power.
Oh, of course not. No, it's
Yeah,
just
the GT model is essentially like an ST line
yeah,
sort of thing.
yeah.
But I couldn't work out if this was a implementation. Sorry, I couldn't work out if this was a result of the launch control being added to the car, which didn't seem to do much. But the wheel spin issue has been fixed.
Thing is, like
So
with all these things now, it's all software,
it is.
so
Yeah.
it doesn't. I mean, you still need to obviously work it out, but all they need to do really is adjust the torque curve a bit,
Yep.
and which you can do probably by pulling a graph up with your mouse. And I think that's all it ever needed. It just gave you literally all the power instantly.
Yep.
And you had that weird thing. I certainly had. I had one of the original ones to review, and I remember the first time I pulled away at a junction with a bit of urgency,
Yep.
with a bit of lock on, and I just sat there and I thought, "Oh, what's going on?" And then I noticed this incredible burning smell
Mm-hmm.
and a noise going, but the car wasn't going anywhere. And the wheels were going that fast. You couldn't actually feel any wheel spin at all. And it was just tyre getting shredded. And Nick was there at the time, and I did ring Nick and said, "Oh, I might have broken the tyres on this car."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you about that." And it said they were working on it and
Yep.
sort of knew about it, but it's good that they've actually done it, because obviously in the UK they're just an importer,
Yep.
and some brands listen to their importers and some don't.
Yeah. Yeah. The takeoff is not very gradual, but it's a bit more gradual than it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a whole new software stack underneath the infotainment system called Coffee or something. But a lot of the usability has been improved, so I'm quite impressed with that. So
Great.
and then I don't know much about this because there isn't much about it yet. But Volkswagen released some little clip on social media the other day where they had like a little drop shadow thing going past a Lupo. It went past a up, and then it revealed this halo silhouette of a car. And essentially, this is going to be the ID.1. And in the article, which will be in the description from Autocar, they've got this little sketch of a yellow car. And from what we understand, this is going to be the entry-level electric car for Volkswagen. And it's going to be revealed in March, but it won't go on sale until 2027, which seems a bit of a big gap for me. I really like my little up. But the one thing that could be improved about it is when I do big journeys in it, or longer journeys, it gets a bit tiresome because it's manual. So having a little car that's electric that should be better than the E-Up is a really, really good idea.
It looks like the stats they're talking about at the moment, though, which are all rumoured, look very much the same as the E-Up, don't they? And the design, I mean, Autocar have done that rendering, but I've seen others, and it looks not too dissimilar from the E-Up, I think.
So that yellow sketch is actually from Volkswagen.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
See, but I've seen some other stuff where some other leaked bits and whatnot that suggest it's not going to look massively different from the E-Up.
Okay, that's not a bad thing.
No, not at all.
No,
but
no.
Sort of think, well, why take it off sale when you're coming back with? I guess they've probably retooled and made it cheaper to produce, which is how they've got it to that price point. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because driving a small car like the Me or the Up round cities is really quite enjoyable because it is so nippy and small. So I'm looking forward to see what they could do.
I know a man, by the way, who might be selling an electric Seat Me if you're tired of that automatic gear, of that manual gearbox and that putting petrol in it, you heathen.
Interesting.
Interesting.
So yeah, that should be interesting, and more details to be revealed in March at some stage.
Cool.
And then, very lastly, before we disappear, this van called the Farizon Supervan, or the Farizon SV, has now officially gone on sale as of Monday 24th. And some of the people we know in the auto industry managed to drive this car yesterday, and drive this van yesterday. It's looking to go head to head with the Ford e-Transit Custom, and there seems to be some really interesting battery options available. So we've got either 64, 83, or actually 106 kilowatt hours available, in lots of different sizes and lengths and different things, and looks quite interesting. I don't know what you think about this. I don't know how much you know about this van yet.
Yeah, I must admit, I sort of learned about it when I looked at the show notes. So my comments here are perhaps a bit worthless. It looks a tiny bit like the Kia one, actually, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So this is actually it's a Chinese brand. It's part of Geely or Geely, who own Volvo and Lotus and all that sort of stuff. And like most Chinese brands in the UK, it's being imported by another company called Jameel Motors. And as I mentioned, there's actually one of the things that Ford do really well with the Transit is the amount of options of height and lengths and different things.
Yeah.
And they've done the same thing with this. There's actually loads of different options. There's 3 different heights and 3 different lengths. So really, really good. In terms of that.
The pricing seems a bit punchy for a brand new brand. But,
I agree.
Yeah, we'll see. Mind you, again, as I was saying earlier, they want to sell these as fleets.
Yep.
And it's a nicer story if they go and offer a massive discount, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Rather than turning up and saying you can have, it's 30 grand a van. If they say, well, it's 45, but we're going to give you X% off.
Yep.
It's a nicer sales story, I guess.
Yeah. There's no range figures being released, but I've got a table of prices. So the 45 grand is the starting price, and then it goes all the way up to 56 for the massive battery and the biggest height and length and thing. So, yeah. Going back to that Kia, they're targeting a price of €35,000. They said last year. So that'll end up being, I don't know,
40 grand here.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, still, it's interesting. It's good to see more innovation in the van space because, as we mentioned earlier, it's a bit lacking for various reasons, probably. So there we go.
Yeah, always good to see new brands appearing. Anyway,
I agree. Yeah.
What are you doing next month? What's coming up?
I haven't got any EVs really until the end of March. I've got the Kia Picanto, and I've purposely booked in the cheapest version of that. So the 1 litre, 60 horsepower, 5-speed manual, because I wanted to see what that's like.
That's a great move as well, because that's the one most people will buy.
Yep.
And it's the one that nobody will review.
Yep. Yeah, I wanted to see what that was like. That's 15 grand, I think, in the UK, which is a really competitive price. And I'm actually looking forward to that, so it'll be quite good. I'm actually driving that up to Manchester at some point. I don't know if I told you about it actually, but there's a Smith & Sniff Live in Manchester. It's probably a bit far for you to drive, but it's happening in March, I think. So, yeah. And then I got the Nissan Qashqai, the new version. I reviewed the old version literally just after the new one came out last year. But I've got the new one, and then nothing EV really until the end of March, as I said. And I've got the facelifted EV6, which would be quite cool to try out. And once I've driven that, I've driven the same platform, but all 3 brands, which would be quite nice.
Yeah, great. I'll have to book in that EV6 actually.
Looks really nice. Yeah. And then what have you got coming up?
I've only got 1 electric car right at the end of the month. It might even be 1st of April.
Okay.
But I've got the Skoda Fabia next week, which I'm doing for Men and Motors. That'll be my last video for Men and Motors.
Okay.
Then I've got the Ford Puma. And then the last one, the electric one, will be the Ford Explorer, which I'm really looking forward to.
Okay.
so far with. Sorry, my phone's pinging. I forgot to turn that off. So far with Ford electric vehicles, I've driven the Mustang.
Yep.
And it was an early version of it, I must admit, but I hated it. And the Capri, I don't want to go anywhere near because it makes me sad in every possible way. So I'm really looking forward to the Explorer because I think that looks good, and it looks good on paper. It's actually quite a nice looking thing. I just hope the interior is nice because that's an area where I think Ford have fallen by the wayside a bit.
Yeah, you'd have to try and get that Ford Puma electric in whenever it goes on sale.
Yeah.
Because that looks really cool, as we mentioned.
Yeah, it does,
a few episodes ago.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the Explorer. But as always, I'll deliver a very frank and honest review.
I think that's all we've got for this episode. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Charging Status Podcast. You can find us in video on YouTube and in audio wherever you get your podcasts. For a full description of this show, visit the episode link in the show notes. You can find links to our websites, theinterface.uk, and also Jim's, notaguru.co.uk, in the show notes. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.